Here we go. So we are going to spend the next 30 or so minutes talking about AGS Prime, our Career Dislocated Worker pre-built solution for this particular grant. Again, I'm Susan Harden and I will be your presenter this afternoon with AGS. Let's go ahead and get started. So today's agenda I think comes directly out of your email invitation. So no changes, no smoke and mirrors. We're going to go through a little bit of an introduction of who we are, who is AGS, a high-level overview of AGS Prime, so you have a clearer understanding of what our commercial product is. We'll talk just a little bit about how does AGS Prime track and report data for this particular grant, for the Career Dislocated Worker Grant. We'll go through a demo. I'll sort of jog us through, maybe a sprint in a couple of places for the purposes of time. Kind of show you the application, see what it looks like, see what the reporting looks like. I know that reporting and data analytics are, particularly key for the WIOA grants and for H-1B grants, to be able to have an application that can easily track the hundreds of business rules and fields for data validation and have a compliant WIPS upload capability built right into this application. So we'll do some show and tell there. Take a quick look at what some of the forms look like, so you have an actual feel for what the data input side really looks like. We'll jump out of the application and kind of come back to our quick little slides here and just do a quick wrap up of, what does it look like to implement, and any time for, questions and answers, discussion, whatever the case might be. So we have a fairly small group here today. This is a repeat session we've done a few times. So we should be able to unmute mics or use the chat feature if you'd rather do that. And that will be monitored throughout if you have any questions or want to just wait till the end. We probably will have a few minutes left at the end for questions. Okay, so with that said, if that's what you thought you were going to do today, then you are in the right place. So let's go forward. So a little bit about AGS. So we're 23 plus years in business. We have spent all of our 23 years and a few years before that, focused really exclusively on providing data management and analytics solutions for WIA, then WIOA. We have spent many years focused on TACT grants, on H-1B grants. We've supported Tech Hire, SWIFI, America's Promise grants. We're currently supporting scaling apprenticeship, closing the skills gap, rural healthcare, One Workforce, and are wrapping up our template for the newly announced Apprenticeship Building America grant and Good Jobs Challenge grant. And we have built a template for the Career Dislocated Worker Grant that we're going to spending some time on today. So we have a long history in working with workforce and employment and training and education and training. We are very much considered H-1B subject matter experts among the FPO community at DOL ETA. We are very, very well known amongst that crew. So that's just a little bit about us. We work with workforce boards, one-stops, community colleges, nonprofit organizations, training providers, healthcare providers, and so on and so forth. So a lot of different types of organizations. We're currently working with 200 or 300 different organizations now around some of those H-1B grants that you've just heard me mention. Moving on, so AGS Prime itself, which is our commercial product, is a completely web-based, no-code platform as a service, or a PaaS. We've probably all over the last 10 or 15 or 20 years heard the term SaaS, a software as a service. Platform as a service, or a PaaS, is a newer class of commercial products, web-based tools that allow you to have a no-code environment in which to build your own applications for whatever it is you want to do. We kind of have on our website. It starts with a question. It starts with a problem. What is it that you need to track? And you want to be able to do something more sophisticated than build a spreadsheet. And so Prime gives you the ability to not be a computer programmer like me. I am not a programmer, but to be able to understand the nature of your problem, what data you want to be able to capture, and most importantly, what reporting, what output, what story, as people say, what do you need to report, and be able to build a tool easily and quickly, take that technology off the critical path, as we sometimes say, and help you have, focus on, the business problem. In this case, participants moving through your programs in a case management business process, while the application is tracking the correct data elements, the correct aliases for your WIPS reporting, right? And all the business logic that is required for the WIPS report itself, all within an easy to use, intuitive case management business process. As humans are helping humans, we want to have a familiar tool that helps guide us through that process. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a couple of minutes. But that's what AGS Prime is. It's that no-code platform. It's used for grant management, like some of the things I've mentioned, as CRMs, business service applications. Some of our healthcare providers use it for tracking home healthcare visits and outcomes. There's just a wide variety of things that go on in different types of organizations where they need a tool to track data and report on it in an easy to use fashion. So pre-built applications, we're going to focus today on one of those, which is our CAREER Dislocated Worker Grant application. It's really intended to provide a fast track for grant management. I've mentioned some of the other templates that we've provided for H-1B, for scaling apprenticeship and closing the skills gap in one workforce and rural healthcare, and now CAREER Dislocated Worker and Apprenticeship Building America, to give our customers the ability to have up-to-date WIPS data. It can be immediately, deployable, given everybody's calendars and whatnot. And we provide live training and monthly user group webinars where we bring our communities together for all these different types of grants, where everybody can hear what's new in Prime for the grant. If, as the feds make changes, we keep your system up to date. And you can ask each other questions about how you're doing a certain thing based on a policy, and what kind of challenges you're having with getting participants, and so on and so forth. So it's the kind of community building that we have provided to our customers for years, for all of these different grants, where we have monthly user group webinars for all of our constituents. And that's really one of the major benefits of utilizing a pre-built application. So, of course, a very big deal is WIPS reporting. And that's a big part of why people come to AGS Prime in one of our templates, or one or more of our templates, because we have templates that are pre-built to the specifications that the feds put out in the Pearl for their grants and funding sources. We pre-build our templates to meet the data elements, the business logic, the business rules, the data validation, and the WIPS schema, and we keep the application and the reporting up to date as the feds make changes. And we know that in the early days of these grants, the feds make a lot of changes. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of buffing and polishing that goes on. And we even saw it back in TACT grant days, where the feds made changes in the fourth round, in the fourth quarter of the fourth year. So, it goes on and we keep the systems up to date. It's a major benefit to our customers to have that issue removed from their plate and rely on us as the subject matter experts to keep the systems up to date. Of course, built into the application is the ability to create your own data visualizations and dashboards. We provide a small handful of those right out of the gate because we've been doing this for 23 years. We have a pretty good idea of some of the key reports and dashboards, if I can use that term, that customers typically like to see. Because we don't know everything about what everybody's going to want to do, the platform itself gives you the ability to write your own reports, write your own queries, create your own pretty reports, right? Visualizations, and then take a series of different reports and smush them together as a mashup and create a dashboard. So you have all of that capability plus canned reports at your disposal. So that's part of what is available through Prime and through your template. So with all that said, let's just dive over and take a look at the application. So I'm going to jump over here, and I think that you are now seeing my AGS Prime. This is my demo site. So there's no live data here, obviously, but this is what our CAREER Dislocated Worker Grant customers' sites look like. So what we're seeing, of course, is this menu across the top that really just clearly outlines the modules that I have as an administrator that I have access to. I have access to my participants' data. I have access to employer data as a built-in CRM. Very crucial for all of these grants to be able to document your participants, those people who you're training for jobs and documenting their employment, right, or advancements, and the employers with whom you are reaching out to gather apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships or job openings and keep track of both sides of the equation, right? The supply side and the demand side. So as the feds have oftentimes said, and be able to have that capability directly within your system, within one system, for integrated reporting and ease of data entry. As an administrator, I've logged in and I see my admin module that gives me some under the hood capabilities within my application itself, separate from the domain where I can build my own applications and add and build more queries and reports, which we're not going to have time for in today's short session. So I'll just say right now, if there's additional information that you'd like to see after today that we just don't have time for in our short sort of run through here today, this overview, please contact me. My contact information will be available later, and we can come back and take a look at things either more slowly or in more depth if this is of interest to you. So here's my admin module. It gives me some admin capabilities. And of course, reports, reports, reports. This is really the big deal why people, really come to us, because we are H-1B experts and we are WIPS experts for helping to manage data in this case management business process. So we'll sort of start here today, but I want to say a couple of quick things. A little bit of a sidebar. So if any of you are taking notes, from a security and privacy perspective, as you can imagine, being in business here at AGS for 23 plus years, working with all the different grants that you've heard me mention, I'm sure you are aware that we can appreciate that we have been vetted, literally hundreds of times regarding our security and privacy, not only practices, but from the application and the platform's perspective itself. A quick word about that. All of our customers are hosted on Amazon Web Services, or AWS. So you automatically have the benefits of being part of the AWS architecture. All of our customers have their own dedicated virtualized web server. So all of our customers have their own dedicated IP address, your own separate domain name. So your domain name will be susanharden.agsprime.net, right? Or oakland.agsprime.net, or whatever the name of your organization might be, is always a good way to do it. So it's nice and high level. What that means is there is no commingling of any of our customers' data with anyone else. All of your data is completely segregated and hard-walled. Not to pick on Salesforce, but they're just a very well-known tool, obviously. Everybody knows that name. They're what's considered a multi-tenant environment where everybody logs in and they only get their data based on their security credentials, their login credentials. We are a single tenant environment, and that's very important for, of course, these kinds of grants where PII is paramount in terms of being aware of it and managing data in a particular way. And one last note, our contract with AWS is such that there is no data that leaves the continental US. So everything is within the US. There's no OUS is the term, no outside of US. A couple of very important terms if you're taking any notes about any of this stuff. So with that said, one last thing I want to say about security is that when we log in and we are from different organizations, right, which is very much the case when we support consortiums, which is pretty typical. Whether they're within a certain state or different organizations within a state or different organizations across the country and different states and organizations kind of everywhere. If you're not a local administrator, right, like I am, you don't get to see the admin module. Local administrators always see all of the data for all of the partner organizations. But we have baked into the architecture for these templates, for these grant templates, something we call organization level security. Another one of those things you might want to jot down. Organization level security means that when you have data entry people from organization A, wherever they're located, I don't care. When they log in to your application, they're going to see data only from organization A, from other of their colleagues and themselves from organization A. Organization B logs in to your centralized database, right? Your AGS Prime application. And they only see data from organization B. And organization A doesn't see organization B doesn't see organization A. But as local administrators, based on the security roles baked into this application, administrators always see all the data for oversight, for reporting, for all of the obvious reasons. So that is a very key differentiator that we bring to the table and always have for these grants. Again, going all the way back to, WIOA to WIA to TACT grants, having that organization level security architecture is extremely important and will continue to be so, and maybe even more so over time. So here we are within the application. I'm going to run over to reports first and foremost. And I'm going to take a look at the reports that we have here. We have a code book, we have QPR, our real-time performance outcome measures, our WIPS report, the first and foremost, the first among equals report, right? Everybody wants to know about WIPS because this is the really heavy lift that you don't want to be managing in a spreadsheet, because it isn't just field to field where you're putting in new data in different cells. It's updating and business rules of certain fields that affect other fields, and statuses change, and so on and so forth. It can get very complicated. So let me just go ahead and run this WIPS report. This is what it looks like when our customers run this. We have a parameter box that pops open. We're going to select our funding source. We're going to select our calendar year, 2022. We'll select calendar quarter. This is the current reporting quarter. I'll just put Q2 in here. Again, in my demo set, I only have a little bit of data. For demo purposes right now, I am going to go ahead and add my header, which you would never do if you were really submitting this file to the feds. But I want to include the header so that you can see the columns that are there for those of you who might be intimately familiar with WIPs and the columns, so you can see that. We do offer an error checking file, a final data validation check. Even though we do data validation on the field and on the forms, we always give you one last check just in case somebody's imported data and something got hinky with an extra space or something weird. But for today, for demo purposes, I'm going to say yes, ignore my error file. I'll leave all the rest of my fields here. I'm going to run this for all organizations. I'm just going to run this report. It's going to run for just a few seconds here. And there's my WIPS report. I'm just going to open this up in Excel, open this up a little so you can kind of see it. Expand my headers and make this just a little bigger. So a lot of fields, a lot of columns in this report, if you're familiar with this. And we are taking all of the data from the forms, dumping them into this WIPS report with these column headers. Again, column headers would be excluded if we were really submitting this to the feds, with the aliasing that's required by these fields based on the data specification. And we can go all the way over and over and over and over until we get to the last column, which is column, oopsie. Our last column is LL. So that's our WIPS report. So that's really exciting, right? I only have a couple of records in my application. So what I want to do is show you one other thing that we provide. Again, for the purposes of time, I'm just going to show a couple of things here. I'm going to run this code book report. So for my analysts on the call, and again, this is my demo application. I have a list of all of my reports just in my demo system. I'm going to run my H-1B WIPS CSV file for dislocated worker grant. What this is your guide for analysts. This tells you everything from every single data element or DE from the Pearl for this column in the Pearl. Gives you the data element number, the field name, and when I open this up, we have actually taken that almost unreadable spreadsheet and digested this here for you, providing information from that spreadsheet, from the Pearl right here, about what is this data element, what are the code values, what do they mean, and then relating that to where that resides in Prime. So we know that this field lives on the participant form. This is the Prime field name. This is the WIPS field name. And here is the error checking. So for every single field for your WIPS upload, we expose all of the information, all of the code per data element number for each of the business logic items. We make it all available to you. And when we make changes to the application based on federal guidance, we keep the code book updated per the application. So everything always stays in sync. And you always have access to everything that Prime is doing and why it's doing it based on what the feds have said that it's supposed to do. Okay? We can utilize this code book if I want to. I know services for this particular grant are particularly not complicated, but they're a bit of a challenge because there's a lot of them and a lot of different categories. So if you wanted to do just a search of how, where are all the fields that have something to do with services, we can get right down here to the one-stop services and activities, for example, and kind of scroll through the list by DE, data element, if you want to, and see exactly, where the field is that you want to deal with. Get right to the date received financial literacy services, for example, and just see exactly how we're handling that.
So the code book is probably next to the WIPS report, our second most um, um, popular and probably valuable report in the system. It really puts the system in the hands of our administrators. Takes the mystery out. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick jump away from reports really quickly, and just show you what the application looks like, so you can kind of get a feel for that as well, just being sensitive to time here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my favorite test customer, Buddy Holly, haha. And what we see here is the ability to open up and edit his profile, or I can go ahead and open up his case folder. So again, this is really an electronic case management application or database. So this is really the same as me getting up out of my chair and walking over to the file cabinet, opening up the H drawer and pulling out the manila file folder for Holly, Buddy, walking back to my desk and opening it up, right? And seeing different paper clipped categories of documents. I see his profile and I can see he's got a document here. He's got a DWG grant enrollment form. I can see that because there's a little document here. He's enrolled in a training program and we've got his trainings and he's already received a credential. And then we have other categories here for documents that we haven't yet created documents for. Case notes, attachments, services, measurable skills gains, etc., etc. So how does this look like? So everything starts with a profile, a participant profile, the participant's demographics. Participant doesn't exist until we have demographics, right? And these fields should look very, very familiar to you. Some fields are here because it's just good database design. And then some fields are here designed specifically for these grants. The feds only allow a non-accurate SSN to be all nines. We include the help text directly from the federal Pearl. So we have the help text built directly into the application for that guidance. And the only allowed values for these fields are baked right into the application. If I have a field, I'll take out a social security number, for example, and it's a required field and it's not filled in, my required field marker with a pink asterisk shows up and my save button is now no longer live. So we are not going to allow data entry people to save forms where data is not filled in or filled in correctly. So if I go ahead and put that back, my save button is now live and I can now save the form. So the rest of the fields just on the profile record, kind of documenting sort of this initial state when they first walk in the door, sort of registration or intake, if you want to think about it that way, is captured here. When we decide to enroll them in the program, we create a dislocated worker grant enrollment form. Nice and simple, easy to use. We document their name and date of birth is automatically inherited. The funding source is documented here. That's the name of the grant. Your grant ID is automatically associated with this, so we know that for WIPS reporting, every participant who has a unique ID now has this grant ID, the grant ID that you were issued when you were awarded this grant, are now stamped into that individual record for your Pearl for your WIPS uploading. We document the date of program entry, and once they've exited, we have post follow-up fields or post exit follow-up fields, but they're not live until we've exited. So we don't make fields live on forms that we just don't need to fill out yet. We're going to document the training program. We have lots of required fields here again, data that is required for this grant with only the allowed values, with field help that comes directly out of the guidance itself. We didn't make it up. It comes directly from the grant.
apprenticeship programs, definitions of RAPs, et cetera, and the ability for you to have field level help and field level guidance for these forms. I'll go ahead and open up this case folder and open up their training program so you can kind of see an existing one, just to kind of see what it looks like. Again, only the allowed values for the potential program of study. We can see that they've enrolled in this training program, and this is the actual training that they're taking as part of that training program enrollment. And everything is related back to the training program that's related back to the program that they're enrolled in, the Career Dislocated Worker Grant. So you have the ability over time for that longitudinal analysis and that breadcrumb tracking of everything's completely related along the way. Once again, only the allowed values are here, with help text directly baked into the application. We do have the ability to keep track of case notes, not part of something that's submitted to the feds, but as a case management environment. And we certainly know that FBOs come in the door and they want to see a case note report or a case note log, or be able to see where things are. Being able to track case notes is, we have learned over the 23 years, is a very important concept, even though it's not WIPS reporting required. Being able to keep track of participant attachments is very important, widely and heavily used aspect by our customers for, I think, virtually all of the different types of grants, where there's a series of different types of attachments that are required depending upon the grant. Photo IDs, resumes, transcripts, timesheets, all of that sort of thing are all part here of what we want to be able to keep track of. Quickly jumping over to the employer side, just to kind of show you what this looks like. It's designed to be a very similar look and feel for data entry, so for cross training. If you've got staff who kind of work on both sides of the house, so to speak, it's going to be very easy for them to utilize the forms and the fields. Everything here is just very CRM-like. Everything is really tracked against that employer, their profile, contacts, and activities, and job openings. If you want to be able to track a job opening on the employer side and the job fulfillment from the participant side, or vice versa, you can track that and report on that from both perspectives. In the time remaining, I'm going to jump back here and just quickly wrap up. So implementation looks like this. You provide us with a domain name. Again, as I mentioned, susan.agsprime.net or whatever you want in front of agsprime.net, essentially. We'll schedule your training. We'll do an application training that typically is two-hour sessions for the application administrators. And then you'll be ready to go live for data entry for your dislocated worker grant. We'll also schedule in parallel, if you would prefer, or serial, whatever works best, to get your other staff, if you have other staff, maybe IT staff or institutional research or IT staff, trained on the domain if you want them to know what the domain is all about, and they can build additional applications as part of your subscription. We don't care how many applications you build. It's all there for you. And then you're really ready to go. So the domain training is separate and apart from being trained and to go live with DWG. It's very, very simple. And that's really the implementation. It's just not hard, especially when you're dealing with an organization who has been providing pre-built templates for a very long time, and the template is pre-built and ready to go. So we try very hard to make it easy for you to manage what we know can be very complicated grants. So that's really it in a nutshell. Here's my contact information if you want to get in touch with me. Some of you probably already know how to reach me, but again, here it is for ease of access. If what you saw was of interest, but you want to see it a little slower or you want to see more detail, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to get together with you anytime and answer other questions that you might have, or bring other folks from your organization together, take a look at it as a team. That is very, very common. Any questions at this point? Okay, I will take that silence as a no, that there are no questions. So again, thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate your time. I know everybody's super busy. Happy summer, what's left of it, and please get in touch with me if you have more questions. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.